Europe today stands at a pivotal crossroads. With the resurgence of nationalism, shifting alliances, and the challenge of balancing commitments to both the EU and NATO, the continent is facing complex pressures on multiple fronts. But what does this balancing act really mean for Europe's future? And how will this shape the region's power dynamics? Let's dive deep into Europe's political landscape to uncover the forces shaping its path forward. NATO has long been the cornerstone of Europe's defense strategy. Established in the aftermath of World War II, NATO was designed to provide collective security against the threat of Soviet expansion. Today, its role has evolved, but its mission remains clear: to safeguard the freedom and security of its member states. With 30 members, including powerful allies like the United States and the United Kingdom, NATO's influence is formidable. Yet, the alliance faces new challenges, from cyber threats to the rise of non-state actors. How NATO adapts to these challenges will be crucial for Europe's future security landscape. The alliance's ability to innovate and respond will determine its effectiveness in the years to come. Parallel to NATO, the European Union, EU, has driven a powerful agenda of economic, political, and even defense integration. The EU represents more than just a collection of nations. It embodies a shared identity, a commitment to unity, and for many, a hope for a peaceful and economically resilient continent. But here's the challenge. Integrating 27 different nations, each with its own national interests, is far from simple. From financial policies to foreign relations, EU countries often find themselves in heated debates about sovereignty versus integration. And as Europe faces growing external threats, the push for a united European defense strategy grows even stronger. While NATO and the EU both advocate for unity, nationalism is surging across Europe, threatening the very foundation of these alliances. In countries like Italy, Poland, and Hungary, nationalist governments are gaining momentum, arguing that national sovereignty should be prioritized over supranational institutions. This rise in nationalism often comes with a strong anti-EU sentiment. Leaders who favor this ideology argue that the EU erodes individual country sovereignty, imposing policies that don't necessarily benefit every member state. Yet at the same time, others argue that nationalism could undermine Europe's ability to stand strong in the global arena. Is nationalism a threat to Europe's unity, or a necessary push for independence? The debate continues as Europe navigates this complex landscape. Nationalism isn't the only force reshaping Europe's alliances. The war in Ukraine has escalated tensions across Europe, especially with NATO and the EU on the front lines of diplomatic and economic responses. Europe's response to Russia has been significant, with both NATO and the EU uniting to impose sanctions and provide support to Ukraine. Yet, despite these unified actions, differing levels of dependency on Russian energy have sparked debates within Europe. Some countries, like Germany, are particularly affected by these sanctions, which have placed immense pressure on their economies. The EU is thus forced to strike a balance, asserting a united front while addressing the unique needs of its members, ensuring stability. With NATO pushing for greater military spending and an increased presence in Europe, the EU has also been expanding its own defense initiatives. Programs like the European Defence Fund and the Permanent Structured Cooperation, or PESCO, aim to build a more self-reliant Europe that can defend itself without leaning too heavily on NATO. However, these overlapping missions can create friction. Many wonder if Europe can pursue autonomy without undermining NATO, or if these two frameworks can complement one another. This balance will be essential to Europe's security strategy moving forward. The future of European security depends on finding this balance. Europe's balancing act isn't limited to defense. Economic interests also play a huge role, especially with the EU facing pressure to maintain favorable trade relations with both the United States and China, while also handling tensions with Russia. European countries are stuck between US demands for economic loyalty and the lure of China's massive market. Additionally, the EU's collective approach to sanctions has had economic repercussions within the bloc. Countries are grappling with the cost of standing up to Russia while preserving economic ties and energy security. This economic balancing act is not just about survival, but about finding new growth strategies amidst global uncertainty. The future of Europe's economy depends on navigating these complex relationships and emerging stronger. Looking to the future, Europe's path is anything but clear. The continent is caught between powerful alliances, with NATO on one side, the EU on the other, and rising nationalist movements from within. The challenge of balancing these interests will likely define Europe's political landscape for decades to come. Many experts believe that Europe may have to make hard choices in the coming years. Will Europe continue its path toward integration? Or will we see a return to stronger individual nation-states? Will NATO and the EU find a way to complement each other's missions? Or will Europe drift further from its US alliance? Can Europe maintain its unity, or will nationalism push it toward a more divided future? The future remains uncertain. Finally, Europe's decisions on these fronts will not only affect the region itself, but also the world. A united Europe could emerge as a stronger global power, shaping a multipolar world order. But a divided Europe would mean more unpredictability, impacting global stability, trade, and security dynamics. From economic shifts to security concerns, Europe's balancing act holds implications for every corner of the globe. And as Europe navigates these complex relationships, its success or failure will undoubtedly influence global power dynamics and stability. As Europe stands at this critical juncture, the choices it makes will shape not only its own future, but the future of global alliances, trade, and security. So what do you think? Is Europe on the right path to balance its alliances with NATO and the EU while addressing the rise of nationalism within its borders? And do you believe that Europe can ultimately emerge stronger through this balancing act? Or will it be pushed into making hard choices between unity and independence? Let us know in the comments below how you see Europe's future unfolding. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay tuned for more insights on global politics.